Hello everyone, welcome to perhaps a slightly unexpected Vice City video. Recently we looked at rare places in Liberty City and Vice City, and although you guys seem to enjoy both of them, looking at the comments it seems like there were more people that were familiar with the locations I included in the Vice video. So while I'm still working on a San Andreas version, here's a bonus video where we'll look at some even rarer spots in Vice City. I hope you enjoy it. In the last video we took a look at this underground printworks location, which is only accessible during the mission Hit the Courier. But are there any other locations which are only available during missions? Well, yes. During the mission Sir Yes Sir, you have to steal a piece of military hardware for Colonel Cortez. Usually you'd steal the Rhino quite quickly, but what happens if you don't? The army convoy heads down to Viceport. It takes them quite a long time to reach their destination, as they move so slowly. But if you're patient, you'll see that they enter this unassuming garage here. Now we have this information, we can redo the mission and get there first. Although the problem is that the army is destined to come in here and join us. So now we have to try our best to take them all out. Well, technically there is another way. We're going to invoke a classic glitch from GTA 3. We're going to enter the speed up gameplay cheat twice, and park a vehicle against the wall, then run between the car and the wall like this. After a few tries you'll actually go through the wall. So, what's inside here? Well, the first thing to note is this opening here. Its black texture make it look like it leads somewhere, but sadly not. You just end up butting against a wall. Then there's this blue container, followed by some shelves with some boxes on. Around the sides there are a series of doors and garage doors too. So, not too much in here, but still interesting nonetheless. One last thing to mention about this location is the door. It typically closes once the mission is finished, like we can see here. When I got in there first though and the army followed me in, I cleared them all out and took the Rhino to its final destination to complete the mission. And when I went back to check on the garage, it was still open. Apparently this is not supposed to happen. Someone's gonna have to tell me in the comments if this has been seen before. I even went to the other main island, came back and it was still open. Maybe I should try saving my game and loading it again to see what happens. But for now, the garage remains open. There is a third location that's used in a mission. Earlier in the storyline there's a mission called Mall Shootout, where you meet this French guy, only to be ambushed by the French security services. La Ponce, yes that is really the French guy's name, makes a run for it, grabs a PCJ 600 that's waiting outside and heads north. You have to run out the mall as well, grab a vehicle and give chase. Somewhat like the military convoy in Sir Yes Sir, La Ponce rides pretty slowly, so it's easy to catch up with him and steal the guidance chips to take back to Cortez. Now, you know where I'm going with this. Where does La Ponce go if you don't take him out straight away? Well, his destination is an apartment block near the North Point Mall. He gets off his bike and runs through these open doors and then disappears. Unlike the underground printworks and the military garage, this location is actually open all the time. Sadly there's not much to explore here as it's only a small space, but hey, perhaps a location you've never noticed before. Or perhaps you have noticed it but you've never known what its purpose was in the game. Continuing with our theme of mission locations, there is one called G Spotlight from the film studios on Prawn Island. During that mission, you go up these 2 flights of stairs on your PCJ 600. Around the side of this office building, past one of the locations where the sparrow spawns, then through these open doors. You then go into this lift and up to the top floor, where the mission continues. So this office building does indeed serve a purpose. It's used in this mission. And this too is open all the time, so you can go back in here whenever you like. The decor of this office does, of course, have a real 80s vibe about it. From the style of the sofas and chairs, to the chunky computers and partition walls separating each cubicle. Something you might have noticed is that at either side of this floor, there are sections of the office space that you cannot access. Inside there are more cubicles with more desks and more computers. But despite being able to see into these areas, as I say, they are inaccessible, sadly. Or are they? Let's find out together. One important thing to mention is that the elevator that takes you up to this floor only works on foot or on a bike. Even with a vehicle like the caddy that's small enough to fit inside the lift, it still doesn't take you to the next floor. What about flying up? Well, the floor we need to be on is higher than the maximum altitude you can fly in this game. So again, we're going to have to invoke the spirit of GTA 3 and use the combination of the Rhino and the Dodo cheat to get up there. Well, technically, I flew up to the adjacent building, and I'm going to use this as a makeshift runway, which is just long enough to take off and fly through the window and into the office. In reality, that alone took me about 10 minutes of attempts to do. Rockstar did everything they could to stop us getting a vehicle up here. That's not a bike anyway, but here we are. As there's a gap above the dividing walls up here, in theory all we need to do is jump on the Rhino and hop over. And here we go. The surprising thing is that you don't drop down to the floor level immediately. You're still walking at the height of the wall initially. But fortunately it doesn't last for long, and we're now exploring a section of this office that I personally have never been in before. Not in over 22 years since this game released. One thing that really caught me off guard was the view from here. It is absolutely stunning. The lucky execs who sat in this section of the office got to experience this every day. Also, nothing here is solid, and why would it be, I guess? The player was never expected to be able to explore here. But now, here we are. The computers, desks, etc. are all the same as the ones in the normal area though. On a side note, I love how random peds just wander freely inside this company's building. Either that or this lady has rocked up to work wearing a bikini. And even the pillars aren't solid over here either. There's also a beautiful view from this window, where we can see the Leaf Links golf course in the foreground, looking over to the buildings around Ocean Beach in the background, I believe. Sadly, it was a little bit hazy by this time in Vice City, so imagine how this view would look at sunrise or sunset. On the other side of the office we can do exactly the same thing. But everything over here is solid. I'm not sure why. Perhaps the devs considered allowing us to explore this entire space, before changing their minds to save time on finishing the game. The views from this side are still awesome, but not quite as good as the other side. I love the vibe of a 1980s office at sunrise like this. Perhaps the stock market execs who work here have been here all night, comparing the text and the texture of their business cards and such things. Here's a location you've probably driven past 1,000 times, if you've played GTA Vice City as much as me, that is. It's on the main street of the mainland of Vice City, located close to Pay and Spray. On the left here is an unassuming bed shop. But strangely, this bed shop has an interior, unlike most other shops in the game. There are of course businesses you can hold up to get some free cash, and also a free wanted level to match, so you can enter those. But mostly, it's just stuff like this. The bed shop actually has beds in it. In any other scenario, that wouldn't be surprising, but in Vice City, it is. We're using the same tactic that we used earlier in the video to get in here, inputting the speed up gameplay cheat twice, then running between the car and the wall to clip inside. Here there are 4 mattresses for sale, and they're all solid. You can't sleep on them, but you can certainly stand on them. If we look up here, we can see Joe's Beds. This is the #1 bed store in Casa. Yes, the very same Casa City that features in another Rockstar title, Manhunt. In fact, this bed shop is an Easter egg. It's a direct reference to Manhunt. Earlier we briefly mentioned the film studio, and now here we are, actually on set. There are a couple of rows of city streets here, which is where we are now. Don't be fooled guys, we're not actually in a city, we're just in the studio. At either end of this row of buildings, there's one of these glass buildings. Now you can kind of see what's inside here. It looks like some kind of spiral staircase. Let's grab a car and a cheat and head inside. As we go inside, we're actually in the entire row of buildings, not just the one at the end. Let's just slow the gameplay down again and take a look. Inside we can see a grey spiral path that leads all the way to the top. Sadly though, it's not solid. Ah well, on to the next location in the video. Okay, what have we got next? Let's do this one. In the mall, there's a coffee shop called the Tarbrush Cafe, which is presumably like the Aldi clone of a Starbucks cafe. And if you haven't worked it out yet, this episode of Rare Places is all about interiors. This interior doesn't require any cheats or glitches to get inside. You can just walk right through the door. There are several tables laid out. There are bags of coffee on a shelf, presumably for people to purchase. And there are lots of takeaway cups on the counter. There's also a comfy sofa area near the tills as well. In the back room, you can even find a katana pickup. There's what is presumably the manager's desk, complete with a picture of something, a notice board, and some other stuff. The interesting thing about this location is that during the mission Copland, you actually blow it up. And if you come back to this location after the mission, it'll be boarded up and you can't get in anymore. If you want a katana now, you're going to have to find one elsewhere. There are several shops in the mall you can enter, like the Gash and Vinyl Countdown, which is a reference to the song The Final Countdown by Europe. But I think there's only one which both has an interior, but is unenterable. And that's this bookshop here. You can shoot the glass windows, which you actually have to do in the mission Shakedown. Then we can go ahead and take this Infernus, which is the only vehicle in the mall. And right now I'm so grateful that the devs decided to put it in here. Win this car in the annual North Point Mall charity raffle, supplied by Vice City Motors. Well, why try to win it when we can just take it? Okay, time to glitch into the bookshop. Over this side we have biographies, and we also have the travel section as well. From this angle we can see the shelves of books that point inwards too. We usually couldn't see these Vice City books here, although I believe these textures are also used in Final Countdown. Look at this one, Deep Ploughing. And how about Fat for Life? Here we have Art and Design, Crime and Thrillers, and the Children's section too. There are basically 2 different textures for the shelves of the books, and they're repeated throughout the store. So the Children's section looks just like Art and Design. There is another place on the map that, like the Tarbrush Cafe, is enterable for a time before you can't interact with it again. It's not an interior, but it is Colonel Cortez's yacht. After the mission All Hands on Deck, Colonel Cortez's yacht is no longer moored at the jetty, as he sails off to escape the French Secret Service. So if you want to look around it, then take the opportunity while you can. The upper deck might be familiar, as that's where the majority of the mission takes place. The lower decks, however, you may never have explored. They're very narrow and the camera angle has to change so as not to clip through the roof. Also, you cannot sprint while you're on the Colonel's yacht. The most interesting section is at the stern. There's seemingly no way to access that section at the lower deck, so let's use a helicopter instead. This small section of yacht features at the end of All Hands on Deck, but otherwise it goes pretty much unused. And what about the speedboat at the back there? Well, did you know that it's not solid? Well, I didn't either until I tried to jump on it and went straight through it. At the end of the mission, Cortez gives you this speedboat as a gift in exchange for your help in destroying numerous boats, loads of French blokes, an entire blockade and 3 helicopters. However, the speedboat we received doesn't actually match the one at the back of the ship. So perhaps this one is a beta model of the speeder, which changed during development. Also, a little bonus fact. Did you know that you can see a model of the Colonel's yacht upstairs at the Malibu Club? Let's take a quick stop off at ammunition in the mainland to stock up on supplies before we continue our journey. Now you'll probably be aware of this one, but I wanted to include it in the video, as I've never actually seen this in the game myself before. But yeah, this Easter egg, if you can call it that, was only discovered a few years ago and it got quite a lot of attention at the time, so you may well have seen it before. Behind this wall in ammunition, we can see a picture of ex-US President Ronald Reagan holding a gun, and on the other side of this texture, we can see Russian politician Mikhail Gorbachev, complete with crosshairs and bullet holes. This texture was likely hidden by the devs and was never meant to be discovered by the players. But of course, it eventually was. In my last video, we took a look at the hidden and inaccessible interior of Howling Peaks, opposite the Greasy Chopper. I did try to access the interior via the glitch we utilised already in the video, but I just kept falling through the floor sadly. So let's turn our attention to the bar across the road, the Greasy Chopper. This building has an interior which is seen during cutscenes, but during normal gameplay it isn't even loaded. Unlike GTA 3, Vice City's interiors live in a separate interiors universe. San Andreas used the same technique as well. But we do have a bit of a challenge to overcome. You see, usually when we load one interior, it's just that interior that's loaded. For example, if we use a trick to break out of the Vassetti estate and attempt to travel to another interior, like the El Banco Corrupto Grande for example, we can see that the interior is not loaded. The fortunate thing though is that there are 2 exceptions. Let's head to apartment 3C. We can glitch out of this interior by getting in the bath and running against the wall. And we'll slip right through it. From here, let's travel to the location of the Greasy Chopper. For some reason, Apartment 3C and the Greasy Chopper both load together. That means whenever one interior is loaded, so is the other. If we can just find a way inside the Greasy Chopper, we can explore it. And I have just the trick up my sleeve. Be honest guys, have you ever been here on the PlayStation 2 version of the game? I know there are various mods for the PC version, which let you explore all the game's interiors. But we're specifically looking at the PS2 Vice City in this video. Okay, so what's in the Greasy Chopper? Most things aren't solid of course, like these chairs and tables. However, you can go up to this raised area of seating, which is solid. At least the floor anyway. The bar is solid though, which is one of the few things that is. At the back here we have pool tables, pinball machines and a stage for visiting bands to play. Looks like whoever played here last left their instruments here. There are loads of signs around the entire bar, some legible, some too pixelated to make out. Like this one, beware pickpockets, loose women. And one that I think just says bellend. Nice. There's one that says bang, but it looks like it's cut off at the end. So maybe it was meant to say banger. There's also a Vice City Mambas sign, which is the local football team who BJ Smith plays for. And he's the guy who you purchase Sunshine Autos from. I think he's also shown in the cutscene for the mission The Party as well. On the toilet door it says you have to have 5 cents to use it. And one that says please do not throw cigarette butts in urinal. It makes them soggy and hard to light. And one that says hippies use side door. The pinball machine is called Space Mission, likely a reference to the numerous space-themed games of the 1980s. I always remembered seeing this bike in the background of cutscenes when I was younger, and I always wanted to get a better look at it. It's just a freeway with no wheel spokes for some reason. Check this, Guff Juice. Yeah, I'll have a shot of Guff Juice please, barkeep. This bottle is seen elsewhere though. Even in Apartment 3C, for example. Or perhaps you'd fancy a double Paul Daniels. Paul Daniels! Like the magician. And then you have a sign for Dud Wiener as well. Obviously a play on Budweiser. And there are some real life photos of girls on bikes and people in bars and whatnot. And a magazine cover. And a couple more signs. Don't even think of parking here. And danger, men cooking. And one for Pause Light, or perhaps it's Pools Light, it's kind of hard to tell. And fortunately for us, there is one more scenario like this, where 2 different interiors load together. And they are the VCPD headquarters and Auntie Poulet's shack. So if we break out of VCPD and venture over to Little Haiti, the shack will also be there. And again, it's just a matter of breaking inside. After a few attempts, we can break through and into the house. Here we are. Again, this is a location that's easier to access with mods on the PC version of the game, but harder to reach on the PS2 here. Okay, so what do we have here? There's some art on the wall, next to these windows. Strangely, they use the same smashed window texture as we see elsewhere in the game. Even at the Greasy Chopper if I remember right. There's a sink over here, and then 2 chairs, one of which Tommy sits in when he visits Auntie Poulet. Also, check out these freaky skulls over here in the corner of the room. Well, or should I say skulls that have been converted into candles. Here's her cooker, or stove. And behind this screen is Auntie Poulet's bed. There's a wardrobe and a plant back here too. In fact, there are several plants dotted around this interior. The roof looks pretty makeshift, like it's made of corrugated steel and wooden planks. Okay guys, last location for the video, and it's a banger. So, you know when you're heading towards one of the islands and you look at it from far away, and it's less detailed than when you're driving down the streets themselves? Have you ever wanted to explore the strange world of an unloaded Vice City? Well, here's how. We need to head to the Vassetti estate. On a side note, have you ever noticed that when you're outside, there's a big gap in the middle of these arches, leading up to the entrance? However, when you're inside looking outside, it's missing. Instead, it's just the same small archways repeated over and over again. Anyway, let's break out of this interior. We need to take a bike and park it like this, as close to the wall as possible. It even looks like the front wheel is clipping into the wall itself. Then we need to head inside. Once there, we need to locate the spot where we park the bike. And all we need to do is press triangle to enter the bike, and Tommy will jump through the wall and onto our PCJ. There we are. From outside, we can look back at those arches. Just an oversight from the developers, but it's just something I always noticed for some reason. Now we're out of the Vassetti estate anyway, and we'll head to the mainland first. Usually, when you're in the interiors world, most of Vice City is unloaded entirely. Except from a few buildings and sections of the road that lie close to the interiors. But the Vassetti estate is different for some reason. As we head to the mainland, you'll notice that a fairly large portion of the level is loaded, but it's just in that far LOD texture state. This means that we can explore at least part of Vice City like this. My bike is actually in the floor somewhat, and all the lampposts etc. still have collision data, but they're now invisible. Great. But look at this, we can explore the very same Vice City that we could only ever see from afar. And it's the same with the first island too. Some of these buildings have next to no detail. They're just grey shapes. The peds still load though, as do things like health pickups and parked vehicles. We're near Ken Rosenberg's office now, heading down towards places like Ocean Beach Hotel and the Pole Position Club. And as we walk into more barely loaded areas, it's time for us to end the video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you for more GTA videos very soon.